She is very disabled and cute, Keah Brown. But before we begin, a few housekeeping and accessibility notes. Earlier today, we sent out a guide on accessing some key accessibility features in Zoom, but I wanted to especially highlight how to access cart or live captioning. To see captions, turn them on by clicking the CC closed captioning icon. You can also change the size of the captions in settings. My colleague Alex will be monitoring the chat box, so if you have any problems, she can help you troubleshoot. We will hold some time for a few questions at the end, so please feel free to enter those questions in the chat box as the conversation evolves. Also, I want to note that this convening is being recorded. You may have just heard that, so we can share it with those who weren't able to attend live. Lastly, if you are a person with a disability and are interested in joining our community, we want to hear from you. In the chat box, we will put a link to our website and how you can apply to become a member. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Risa Rifkind, who will be facilitating our conversation, and of course, the incomparable Keah Brown.
Thanks so much, Emily, and Keah, so excited to have you join us. I like to just jump right in. I invite everyone to check out Keah's website and to read the pretty one to learn more about her if you haven't already. But first and foremost, Keah, I hope you are staying safe and healthy during this time. Can you share with us how you're passing your time, spending your time right now?
Yeah, right now I've been focusing a lot on writing. I try not to pressure myself into being productive because I hate the idea that this is just free time that we're supposed to use to be productive. Like we can do whatever we want. But for me, writing sort of calms me down and keeps me centered. So I've really just been working on things that I'm hoping to sell or pitch once this is all over. And I just try to write in the morning, take a break, have some lunch, watch a movie or a TV show, and then write some in the afternoon. But I try not to write past 7 o'clock. I just like the idea. I'm a Virgo, so I love a routine, and that really just helps me keep sane and safe and grounded, and just able to get up in the morning and be fine. I can get through this day. I got through the one before it. So yeah, writing has been literally a godsend.
I love the idea of a routine. I hope to be diligent and get my own routine together sooner than later. But on it, and maybe I too need to just find my outlet. But thank you again for joining us, and welcome to our virtual Disability Power Series. You are our first guest, which is super exciting. And
an honor.
It's our honor, so thank you for letting it be our honor to have you. And as a woman of color with a disability myself, I was hoping you could share with us and reflect on how you find power as a woman with a disability.
Well, I mean, a lot of the power that I have, I find through the work. I feel like I'm my most confident self, most certain self on the page. I think by not allowing myself or people like me, like women of color who are disabled, to be erased from the narrative of disability, that really that's what gives me the most power is writing and saying, even on social media, I'm here and I'm not going to be ignored. I'm not going to be pushed aside for this random idea that people have of who can be disabled and what it means to be disabled. I think just using my voice and my platforms, which I know I hate the word platform, but using it to be who I am all the time without apology, and talk about what it means to be of color and disabled, what it means to be queer and disabled, what it means to live at those intersections and not apologize for the space that I take up. That's where I find my most power, is when I'm like, you know what, no, I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm just going to be who I am all the time, and that's going to be enough for me. If it's not for you, then great, keep it moving. But if it is, welcome. Let's have some fun. Let's enjoy the time we have together.
This is Risa. I think maybe that's why I relate so much. What you write about resonates with me because you tell it like it is. And
I try.
as a fellow New Yorker, you know, we tell it like it is, and that hopefully is what makes us charming as well.
Right. Fingers crossed.
We'll see. I mean, I think you're doing a great job, so thank you for
Thank you.
using your platform to do that. In the pretty one, you talk about the difficulty of representation when you are multi-representational in your work, and how you saw Black bodies, for example, in movies, but those bodies didn't have disabilities. Tell us more about your opinion of today's representation. Has pop culture moved forward at all?
I think very slowly and very small steps. I think there's still so much work to do. But when I look at characters like Garrett on Superstore, I feel like we're getting to a place where we're allowing disabled characters to be fully realized people, and that's wonderful. But again, you know, it has its own issues. He's not really disabled, and, you know, he's just one character in a sea of characters that gets to be what I think is actually authentic in some way, even with its own problems. And I find that, like, you don't see people like us still in these shows or in these movies. And I think that's the problem. When we have a narrative that says only certain people are disabled, and it's usually just some white cis men who are wheelchair users who hate themselves. Like, those are stories that that I know are deserving to be told. But I think what happens is that we lose nuance when we're only telling those stories. And so for me, I think there have been strides made, but at the same time, there's still so much work to be done. And I think that we can't rest on, you know, one or two decent pieces of representation. We should want so much more. And so for me, it's like I love pop culture so much that I know what it can be, and I know that it has the potential to be great. It's just about, you know, me helping make it great in whatever way that I can.
This is Risa, and related to, you know, lack of representation of multi-representational people like me and you, right? It's just representation generally of Black people in and out, people of color in and out of the disability community. How has that specific element of lack of representation within the disability community impacted your life and the stories that you share?
I think that I spent a lot of time initially being angry. I'm a very person that's like can access anger very quickly. So I have to be careful of that. But I find myself just like frustrated because you would think that people who know what it's like already to be marginalized would be more willing and open to letting more people into the community or talking about the ways in which we intersect. And I think the problem that I have the most is that pop culture tends to see disability, like I said, in one narrow way. You know, only people who use wheelchairs are disabled, you know, and that goes down to just a systematic thing, you know, in terms of our symbols and stuff. But there are so many of us who either have invisible disabilities or who are disabled but don't use mobility aids or just use them some of the time. And I think the problem that I see within the community is this idea that there's a hierarchy, you know, that one is greater than the other. But the reality is we're really all in this together. And so we can't do things like separate out, you know, who is worthy based on a sort of based on a sort of hierarchy of disability, and based on the idea that, like, if you use mobility aids, you're somehow more disabled than the person before you or behind you. That's not the way it works in the real world. And I think once we can get to that place where we're like able to say it and mean it, then we'll be better off.
This is me said, I love the conversation around hierarchy as well, because I think that happens a lot and it's not often talked about. But I'm going to switch a little bit, and thank you all for submitting questions. I see them coming into the chat. Keep sending them in. We are going to switch to audience Q&A, audience participation is welcome. So we'll get there momentarily. But something else that I think was really interesting in what you wrote about is that people without disabilities think about disability more than people with disabilities, which I think has its own like hierarchy spin. But what did you mean by that, and how does that relate to ableism?
Just that I think for a lot of us in the community, we know how to adapt and we do so accordingly because we have to. But the people who don't have disabilities or don't know anybody with disabilities, they think that it is the number one thing on our minds at all times, that we have no other interests or cares or hobbies or anything. I think that it's just disability all the time. And I find that even with like certain representations, you can tell who's really behind it, if it's somebody with a disability or in the community or not, because sometimes they make your disability your only personality trait. But for me, my biggest personality trait is that I love cheesecake. Like, my biggest thing is that I love, pop culture, and I love rom-coms, and I love, different colors, and I just love all these random things, but those things are never talked about in conjunction with disability. It's always like disability or nothing, full stop. And I think that that's because non-disabled people don't understand that we could possibly care about anything else. They think that, oh my God, because it's such a shock to them, they think that it's just a constant shock to us, and that's all we must be. But you're a fully realized human being, and so is everybody else in this room. So it's just important that non-disabled people stop thinking about the shock value of disability and start seeing the person behind the disability, or rather in tandem with the disability.
This is Risa. I think that's really interesting too, as we think about our current situation and access to healthcare around the COVID-19 pandemic, and the talk of ableist discrimination in people without disabilities making decisions on who gets access to those life-saving measures like access to ventilators if someone else deems their life not as valuable, if you will.
Right.
What have you been noticing in these times?
It's hard not to be petrified. Like, it's hard not to spend my days just completely scared of even having to like go out to get the mail, or like going out to get like groceries if I need them. And it's just this idea that, like, because we see so many articles like the one in ProPublica that said like people with disabilities are the ones that they're more likely to make comfortable instead of giving us the treatment that I think that we deserve, that sort of reality scares me, because I don't want to die, and I don't want to die because somebody who has no idea what it's like to live with a disability thinks that my life is less because I have one. And what I've been trying my best to do is like, thank God for therapy. I talk to my therapist about it literally every week. I'm like, girl, it's time for the COVID section of our session, because I just need to talk about it. And I think for me, it's just using my voice online and talking about how ridiculous it is that people like me are being made comfortable instead of given the care that we deserve, because these people don't understand what it's like to live with disabilities. They think that a pre-existing condition automatically means that we wouldn't make it, but the only way that we wouldn't make it is if they weren't really trying to do their jobs. And really my whole focus in this whole thing is like, trying to stay afloat mentally by doing work, but also being honest about the fear behind the pandemic, because I think that a lot of people think that we're being overzealous. Or there was somebody else who like tweeted at me and they were like, oh, you're just being like dramatic. And then like the articles came out and I'm like, see what I'm saying though? This isn't just me being, alarmist is the word they used. This is me being honest about the reality. And so I want people to understand that it's not the same for everybody else. And so we may all be in this together, but it's not always going to be the same result. We need to start thinking about those of us who are less in a position of fortune when it comes to, our medical system.
There's a reason I think related to that too is what happened after all of this. What happened when we come out of the pandemic? And I know in a recent Fast Company article you said not allowing remote work until the threat of a pandemic is ableist, and that accommodations for employees with disabilities make better businesses. How do you see sharing your story as part of that larger culture change for disability inclusion in corporate spaces?
I'm sorry, what did you say? It cut out.
How do you see sharing your story as part of the larger culture change for disability inclusion in corporate spaces? So, how might we start thinking about accommodations like remote work as part of our long-term work strategy?
I mean, I think that it will allow more people to show what they can do. I think we spend so much time thinking like, oh, this isn't possible. We could never do remote work. It just doesn't work for our company, which is the response I got a lot before the pandemic. And I think that because of the pandemic, we can see that that's not really the truth, because so many places, so many publications, for me as a journalist and a writer, went virtual overnight. So it really wasn't as hard as they made it seem. And I think that even though the circumstances with which we find ourselves working remotely aren't ideal, I think that it just goes to show that it's possible to turn out quality work remotely, that it's not just like you have to be able to show up to an office, sit at a desk for umpteen hours, and that's supposed to be the value that you bring to a publication or any job. It's just that I think that my hope is that this will change the ways in which people see remote work in terms of whether or not it's valuable to their companies, because I think that a lot of us are living proof that it is. We're still getting work done, and I mean, we do live in a capitalist society, which blows, but at the same time, it's like you're allowing more people to have access to your publication and to feel seen by your publication, or to feel seen by your product or your ads or whatever have you, because you're allowing people who would have never gotten the chance otherwise to work remotely from their homes but still provide you with the service that you're asking for. And for me, I'm more likely to buy something or try something when I see somebody who looks like me doing it. And I think that these, and I'm speaking solely for publications because that's my wheelhouse, but I think that when you're seeing other writers inside of marginalized communities that you would have never seen otherwise, that's important, and that's going to allow me to continue to be a reader, or to start reading whatever publication you're at, or to start being a part of whatever it is that you're trying to get me to be a part of. And I think it really just goes to show that at the beginning of this conversation, disabled people were not in it, and at the end of it, we're not in it either. But we can change that before all of this is over. We can be the people that people turn to when they're trying to find ways to get connected to a community that they've otherwise ignored. So hopefully, the remote work article helps these companies and places see that it's, worthy work.
This is Lisa, and I think another part of the post-pandemic conversation also, in addition to access to employment options, is how do we heal? How do we move forward? How do we talk about this trauma? And in the last bit of the pretty one, you really go into conversations around oppression, trauma, mental health, and your own experiences with mental health and suicidal ideation. But how art and the written word played a part in you continuing your work and staying with us. Do you have thoughts on how art, especially now, can help discuss mental health moving forward?
I mean, everyday art to me is something that keeps me going. And I know that's very cheesy, but I feel like the knowledge that art can be made, even in times like this, or that it is being made, and we'll see it outside of this pandemic is what keeps me going. And I think that it's really special because I was just talking to my friend Danielle before we started the chat. We're planning to be live text movies to each other. The half of it that comes out on Netflix May 1st. And just having something to look forward to, uh, just, every day or like every other week, to have something that I know I can go watch or go read or, somehow participate in a conversation about. That's what keeps me going. And I think that that's what's going to keep a lot of us going. It's like art is never just for the artists or the creatives, but it's for people who need something to look forward to. And my whole journey in terms of self-love is literally me just trying to find something to look forward to. And I found it in books and I found it in movies. And then I was like, oh, well, I can, write my own books. And, I just finished the first draft of my own movie. So hopefully, I can help be a part of that change, but I can also let people know that it's not frivolous to find something to look forward to. And it's not frivolous to put your heart into art or to try to create your own happy ending through art or through just trying to get through the next day, whether that be through a movie or a book or a TV show. Like, it's very important, I think, to find something that makes you feel like you can get through another hour, another second, another minute, and to hold on to that as tightly as you can.
This is Risa. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to ask you one more question and then turn it over to Alex to help manage the amazing amount of questions that are coming in. But this is your first book you published at 27. Many of our leaders who are in our network and on this Zoom hangout meeting, whatever we might want to call it, are interested in sharing your story on a broader scale. Could you talk through your journey of publishing the book? What were the steps and anything you would have done differently? And then at the very end, I want you to just share what you're working on now. So I know I said one question, but I'm going to make it a long one.
Yeah, I mean, publishing a book was a wild process because I thought for sure that fiction was going to come first. Fiction is my first love. Like, she's just beautiful. She's wonderful.
Oops, Keah, I think we lost you for a second. Oh no. Bear with us while we let Keah get back.
Can you hear me?
We can now, yes.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes, thank you, Keah.
I can hear you, I can't see you.
We can hear you and see you, so if you're ready, feel free to keep going.
Yeah. Okay, I can see you now. All right, so what was I saying? Oh, yes. What was I saying? What was the... I forgot that fast.
About sharing
publishing the book. Okay. So publishing the book was a wild ride because I always thought that fiction was going to be my first published book. I was like, oh, fiction is my first love. She's perfect. She's beautiful. Like, how can we not stand? But then my literary agent, who came to me from Twitter, I'm going to slight brag. I had like 8 literary agents looking to work with me, and I like put them on these speed dating phone calls where we talked about like what they saw for my future. And Alex, he was the best fit. He's over at Trident Media Group. Shout out to Alex Slater. We sat down and he was like, well, people know you for your essays and your articles. You want to do an essay collection eventually. Why don't you just do it first? And so then we sat down and we talked about the things that I wanted to talk about. And I told him, I said, this is not a sob story. This is literally just a story about my life so far, and I want to be able to celebrate where I am and how I got here. And so essentially what we did was we put together a proposal, which was like maybe almost 100 pages, and we just talked about what the book was like, what you could compare it to, what it meant to have a book like this, and why it would be a good idea for these, publishing houses. And then we sent that we sent that proposal out to different publishing houses, and then it happened really fast, which I guess is very rare. But we sent out the proposal in September, and we sold it I think in like November. And so it was a very quick process. And then I started writing January 1st of that next year, because I was like, I don't want them to change their minds or take it back or be like, just kidding, you're unpunked. So I started writing immediately. And then I went through edits with Rakesh Satyal at Adria Books. He was amazing. It was a very back and forth open process. And so then we did edits, and then it was like the first pass pages, which is, any big changes you want to make. And then the second pass pages is just the like small edits, like periods, commas, whatever. And then the book was ready. But then we had to wait for them to be bound and for us to pick a cover. And that was a whole process of just trying to figure out what fits best with the story, in terms of, what would best encapsulate the pretty one. And we decided that my face would. So we chose the cover. And then it was a lot of, I did a mini book tour. I call it a book tour of sorts. And so then once the book was out, then I started to go different places and talk about the book itself. So the process was, I think it was much longer for the book to come out than it was to write it. But I think it was just because I was so excited to write it that I was like hammering the essays out like every single day. I was at my house or the library, and I was just like, gotta write these essays, because I don't want them to be like, never mind, you're taking too long, like this is too much. So I did kind of rush the process, I think, a little bit. But it was really an experience for me specifically, to see my hand on the cover and to be proud of it, because I had spent so long, hiding my hand in pictures, cropping it out, asking people to like make sure my hand wasn't visible. But I think for me, it was like very important to have my hand visible on the cover and to say like, I'm disabled and I'm cute, like get used to it, here it is, right out into the public, and here you have it. I mean, and in terms of like what I'm doing now is I'm working on a novel in the morning, and then I'm working on a movie in the afternoon. I'm hoping that like something will come of those. We never know with these sorts of things. But I follow this book called The 90-Day Novel by Alan Watt. I highly recommend it. Like, I'm not being paid to say that, I promise, but it's just really good. And so yeah, I've been working on a movie and a novel, and then like, just using those two things to tide me over. And then I have like I'm a Virgo again, so I love a plan. And I have like a Word doc of the next 5 projects I want to do. So I'm just focusing on those 2 first, and then I'll do the next 2 and then the next one. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm just trying to keep busy and write across genre and do everything that I love, because mediocre people get to do it all the time. So why not me?
This is Risa. I love that. A plan, continued execution. That's great. Alex, do you want to come help us start moderating the Q&As that have come in, the questions that have come in?
Yes, I would love to. This is Alex, and Emily Blum, I did see your question come first, but I want to hold that one for the end, and I'll start off with the question that came from Evelyn Keolian. Do you think the reason for not having more people with disabilities represented on TV and movies is because not enough are encouraged to go in the field?
Oh, hi. I love this question. That's a great one. I think it's a twofold. I think that that's, a really big reason, but I also think that people use fear to explain away their decisions, and they use fear to stop themselves from trying something new. And so a lot of it is that people don't feel like they're encouraged to go out and do it, because we don't get auditions and we don't get the opportunities that our non-disabled counterparts do. But at the same time, it's also that people are afraid to even try. And not the actors, I'm talking about like studios, producers, directors, what have you. They're afraid to even try to tell proper stories with people with disabilities, because they think that the caricatures that people who are non-disabled put on are sort of like accurate depiction, and we all know that that's not true, but they don't. And so I think a part of it is really that people don't feel comfortable enough to go out and try, but it's the bigger issue is that we're not being asked to try in the first place.
Thank you. I have another question that is in that same vein from William. Do you think it's hard to represent characters in films as the audience is younger or older?
Well, as somebody who is working on something next for a younger audience, I think that it's all about the way that you approach things. And I think that there's sort of a hardship in each. But I think that if you treat your characters with disabilities like people first, then it'll come across in a better way than treating them like characters. And I think that what happens often is that we see stories that are about disabled people, not by disabled people, and there's nuance missing. And so for me, it's like I want to be able to keep that nuance in both children's stories and in older stories. Like we just announced that I have a children's book coming out in fall 2022, and that was very important for me to give the main character, nuance, and to give her the sort of agency that we don't often see in these stories. And so I think that they're both hard, but they're both doable.
Thank you. This question comes from Kedra Cheney. Hi, Keah. What kind of story/storylines in pop culture do you think had an opportunity to tell a better story about disability, but maybe dropped the ball? Also, in your fantasy world, what kind of books/movie/TV script would you like to write if Hollywood came knocking?
Well, I would like, first of all, let me just answer what I would like to write, because yes, I would like to write comedies and rom-coms. I am a rom-com aficionado. I'm doing it now. That's the script that I'm working on, is a romantic comedy, because I love them and I think that they're so important. I'd like to do a drama eventually, but I'm like team rom-com all the time. So I think that there are a lot of stories that they could have done better. I think that Speechless could have been better, the TV show, like as a whole. I think that they could have done a better job of like showing that disabled people of color exist in the world in general. I think that they could have allowed JJ to have love interest that wasn't just like, oh no, I could never feel that about him. And that show was just so many like, I think, missed opportunities for me, or in my opinion. I think that while I love Superstore, it would be really cool for them to do an episode, I think, in Garrett's point of view, just to see how he like navigates every single day. I think that would be really funny and really smart, because he's hilarious. I also think that movies like $1 Million Baby and Me Before You, like they could have just been better as a whole. There was another one that Hilary Swank did. I think it was like You and Me or something, whatever. It was on Netflix with Emmy Rossum, and I just felt like it got really, like, it was good at first because the acting was good, but it's also just like these things tend to, cater towards sappiness in a way that like annoys me, in a way that doesn't seem genuine. I think that you can allow disabled people to fall in love and fall out of love and not want to kill themselves by the time that the movie is over. The TV show is like all of them hating themselves all the time. And I think that those offer really negative views of disability as a whole, so those could have been better. I think that's it. I feel like a lot of times when I see disability, it's usually because of those reasons that it's not great. But I will say that Crip Camp is amazing, so if you haven't seen it yet, please go watch it. I saw it at Sundance and I cried. It was ugly. Like, I'm not a pretty crier in the first place, but it was just bad. And definitely go watch that. I think that they're doing great. I think it's a great documentary.
Thank you for that. And I know a lot of our members have been, have watched that movie as well. So good to have a shout out to Crip Camp in this chat. This is a question from Timiathis Gordon Jr. I'm sorry if I messed up your name. Question for Keah. In the midst of the pandemic, where people are encouraged to stay home, what fun things outside of writing do you like to do to have joy and not become bored and deep in thought? How can disabled people of color balance social distance with being social with their community, considering that some communities of color depend on social interactions in groups? Or what can they do to remain social at home, even though I cannot come out and do the same thing? I worry about the mental health of our community, partly due to the closed access of fun stuff that we usually enjoy.
Oh, I worry about it too all the time. Outside of writing, a lot of what I do for fun is like listening to Paramore, like just sitting in the dark and listening to Paramore, like the emo queen that I am. Watching movies, watching TV shows. What I do a lot is just in general, but definitely more so during the pandemic, is that I plan out times to watch things at the same times that my friends are watching it. So we coordinate, and that helps me keep like we're not together physically, but at least we're doing this thing together. Like me and my friends who live in California, we got together and downloaded that Netflix party thing and watched a Cinderella story. You know, we plan to watch TV shows, or like we'll watch it like the day after each other. Like 90 Day Fiance is wild. Like before the 90 days, I love. It's so messy. And me and my friend Erica, like, we'll watch it the day after each other, and then we'll like literally have a full discussion. And so it's literally just me constantly talking to my friends and like constantly being like, you know, we're not doing things together, but we're doing things virtually together, and that has to be enough. But I do worry about mental health issues and worrying about like getting too sad. And literally what I try my best to do is like when I'm feeling that bad, I will shut off Twitter or shut off wherever I'm getting the bad news from and just watch a movie for an hour to make myself laugh, or, you know, go look at TikToks with my sister, just something to like get myself away from the thing that's making me feel like, you know, this is never going to end, or that this is like the world's worst thing. So that's what I suggest, is like find things to do with your friends virtually together, and, you know, step away from Twitter or step away from like wherever it is that you're getting the constant, you know, negative like mood or ideas or news.
Thank you. And I think it's really important to talk about joy, especially in this time. So thank you for that. This question is from Whitney Hill. Thank you for coming here to talk to us. Quick but tough question. How would you suggest to continue writing, advocating, creating for yourself and others when your disabilities began to prevent you from being emotionally / proactively active? My depression often grapples with my voice, and now especially, I feel like my introversion is on an adrenaline attack, and my voice is a whisper. Sidebar, creating or producing anything is difficult.
Ooh, that is a hefty question. I feel like the best advice I can give you is to try your hardest to be kind to yourself. You know, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and so don't feel like you have to create or you have to have some sort of fantastic art or the next great American novel out of it just because we have time on our hands. I think that you should just focus on trying to be well with yourself first before you try to dive into creating. I know that you said it's tough for you right now, so, you know, maybe take a break from creating and just try to find things that bring you joy outside of it, because you're not under any obligation, at least from me, you're not under any obligation to create or do something that's major just because we have time. Because like I said, this is a pandemic. Like, this is hard stuff. Like, we wake up every day and it's like, oh, everything is closed, but that's not a vacation. You're not on vacation. You're not being forced to create something. The only reason why that I'm still creating is because it makes me feel good. If it didn't, I wouldn't do it. And I try to take off on weekends. So just, you know, try to be kind to yourself in the process, and understand that it's not going to come easy the way that it did before, but you're not under any obligation to create just because other people are.
Thank you so much for that really wise advice.
Thank you.
This question is from Brian. Keah, how do you overcome fears to do daily activities with the current pandemic, and how do you get over the feeling of being stuck?
My whole thing with fear, especially at the top of last year and this new one, is that I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm not going to get past it. I'm just going to have to use it, feel it, and then do it anyway. A lot of it is just like, I'm going to be scared, but I'm going to do it anyway, because otherwise I'll feel regret for not trying. And in terms of like going out and doing things that I have to do during the pandemic, I'm the worst person for advice with that, because I have been holed up in my room with so much anxiety. And like, I just was like, oh, I can't go to physical therapy right now, because the idea of leaving my house is just exhausting. So I wish that I could give you better advice, fear with that regard. But I think in general of like being scared of doing something, like I was so petrified to write a movie, and I was so petrified to start a novel, but I did it anyway. And I was still scared, and I'm still scared doing it, but I'm doing it because I feel like if I don't, I'm going to regret it. And I don't want to live my life anymore with the regrets. So in terms of like creative processes, that's what I would say is like use the fear and do it anyway. But in terms of like leaving your house during the pandemic, I can't help you because I haven't left mine, and I have no interest in leaving it until it's safe.
Thank you. This question is from Marcus Miller, and kind of shifting, is still in the same vein, but with a different lens.
Okay.
No worries. My apologies for getting to the meeting late. Sidebar, Marcus, no worries. I'm an advocate for inclusion as a father of a blind adult daughter and as a DEI practice professional. How are you managing the hashtag stay home, stay safe mandate as someone whose mobility may be curtailed due to the virus?
It's interesting because, like I said, I've been too scared to go to physical therapy. So I've just been doing my physical therapy at home. And like when I have any sort of like, knee ache or any sort of like, mini sore throat, like I had a sore throat for like 2 days last week and I was panicking. So I don't know if I'm handling it as well as I should be, but I also think that what I'm trying to do is remember that like I'm not the only one going through this, and that sort of helps me at least contextualize what's happening. And I try my best to just be kind in the moments that I'm frustrated with my body, and understand that just because I can't do something, I can't be productive 1 day or 2 days or like a week, that doesn't mean that I'm somehow less than because of it. And that's what really helps me the most. And so hopefully I answered your question, and also hopefully it helps your daughter to understand that like it's okay to have bad days, bad weeks. At this point, like this all sucks, and it's okay to say that. It's okay to feel that.
Yeah, thank you. This is another question. Thank you guys for all the questions.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope we can get through all of them. So I'm just like going to the next one. This is from Kathleen Dillon Narco. It seems like so many of the disability stories in movies are about curing or eliminating a disability. When will we see a good character who has a disability and lives with it?
Hopefully when I sell this movie. If I sell this movie, you'll see it. My hope is that we will, in my lifetime. I think that it's something that like exhausts me with regard to disability narratives, is that it's either, wow, she was never disabled in the first place, like everything, or wow, this person suddenly has a cure and they're totally fine, like Forrest Gump when he was running with the braces, and I was like, oh God. And I love Tom Hanks, we love him, but come on. I think that my hope is that I can help create those stories, and hopefully one day they'll see the light of day. But my hope is that we can all in some way help shift the way that disabled characters are treated in films. And it's not that like disability is a thing that you have to cure away or lie about. It's a thing that you can live with every single day like we do. So hopefully, that'll come when I finish, writing the movie, or writing these movies, plural, and hopefully that they'll sell and we'll see them one day. Fingers crossed.
We'll keep our fingers, toes, eyes, ears, everything crossed for you because we want to see that movie too.
Thank you.
This is from Grishma Shah. Keah, I too am working on a children's book about a spunky girl of color with a disability! Exclamation point.
Nice.
I'd love to talk to you about that offline! Exclamation point. Currently, I'm working on a project to try to foster deeper human connection between storyteller and audience. Do you have any tips on how to pull that heartstring to see the we collective and care?
Ooh, wonderful question. I guess for me, a lot of my work is so identity based, whether that's fiction or nonfiction. And so I feel you on that, trying to, get people to see the we of a collective instead of the separate I. What I try to do is show the humanity in my characters, whether that's in children's books or movies or what have you. I want so badly for people to understand that we're more alike than we are different, and that's so cheesy, but it's so true. And so I guess the tip that I have, or the tip that I tend to use, is to fully know who the person is first. And so if you know who the person is, that'll shine through better on the page, or wherever it is that you're creating this thing, it'll shine through better when you know the person it is that you're creating. And what we can do to pull at people's heartstrings is just create characters that are fully realized and that feel things and that are messy as much as they are good. I think that when we try to focus too much on one archetype of a person, we lose the, we lose the relatability of a character. So when we're just like, oh no, this person is completely good. Like, no, life is full of gray areas. And so you want to make sure that your characters as a whole are characters who are messy and complicated, because we all are in the real world, and that's the kind of characters I know that I love to see.
Thank you so much. We are going to take just do 2 more questions and then close it out. Thank you guys so much again. And we'll try and collect these questions and then maybe send them to Keah if you have time to respond afterwards, since we didn't get to everyone. This one is from Valerie Jaharis. Representation is amazing and necessary, but do you imagine a future in media where disability narratives are used to challenge our conceptions of care, independence/interdependence, and the idea that the binary of abled/disabled is not as clear as is portrayed? Do you think certain mediums of art might be better for this challenge than others? Sometimes I feel like good representation isn't enough and wish for conversations to be furthered and made more complicated.
I think, well, like I said, for me, I'm a pop culture buff. I love pop culture. So my inclination is to say that it can happen better or best with like TV and film. And I think that it's not that I have to imagine a future where that happens. I think that first we have to, I think it's really about getting the basics down first. Like, so yeah, it's exhausting to constantly be like, disabled people are people too. Like show us that. But it's also at the same time, like, we have to start somewhere. And so my, I guess my idea is that we start with the idea that people are disabled, like disabled people are people first, and then we can go into nuanced conversations. But we can't do it all at once. And so, yeah, I do imagine a future wherein our conversations can be deeper, but I also know the reality of right now, we just would, like, representation in general would be enough right now for us to further the conversation later, if that makes sense.
Totally. So this is the last question, looping back to Emily Blum's question. Who are the writers and artists that you love, and who else should we be reading besides you?
Oh, I think I made a list. Hold on, I'm picking my phone, but I'm not ignoring you, I promise. Because I put a list together. I love Roxane Gay like the world does, or the world should. I think Ashley C. Ford is doing great work. I think Brandon L.G. Taylor is doing fantastic work. There are so many wonderful disabled writers, of course, whose names I'm like blanking on, but there are so many people doing great work in terms of like, and not even just about disability. I think that there are people with disabilities who are telling stories that dig deeper than, you know, we often see with regard to just everyday life. I follow a lot of wonderful people on Twitter. I think if you're looking for a lot of good writers and people that you should be reading, I think that you should definitely be on Twitter, because Twitter is where a lot of good work is happening, and it's where a lot of great disabled people can share, you know, their platforms and their voices, and they can talk about the things that matter most to them, but keep it so that like it's what's the word I'm looking for? Keep it so that it's like understandable by a large audience, whether you're disabled or not. So of course I'm blanking on everybody else's names and I can't find the freaking note that I wrote, but there are so many wonderful people on the internet. I think Alice Wong is amazing. I love her with all my heart. Literally, if you're just looking for somebody worthy reading or worthy of like talking about, literally follow Alice. Alice knows everybody. Rebecca Coakley knows everybody. Like, just follow them and they will lead the way. I promise you, they're amazing. And there are so many people, of course, that I'm blanking on, but they're amazing. And follow them for more people that you should be reading, because they're always on it.
Thank you so much. And this is just a quick, in the chat, Krista asked if the list can be sent out via email. So no worries that you can't remember right now. We usually send a follow-up email. And so
okay,
happy
good.
to put that in and, you know, continue spreading spreading the word about different artists and you know, thought leaders.
Absolutely. I have a whole list. So you'll be getting that in the follow-up email, I promise.
Good, great. That's good for our audience to hear. I think that we're going to wrap it up and close out with, I just saw Risa raise her hand, so I'm going to hand it back over to Risa to close us out.
Okay.
Thanks, Alex. Don't log off yet, because Keah is actually going to close us out with a reading of an excerpt from The Pretty One. So just bear with me for these boring remarks to close us out, and then I'm going to hand it back over to Keah. And I do see more questions are coming in. Like Alex said, we'll try and like take these in and then share out what we can in the follow-up. So thank you again, Keah, for such an insightful conversation, and for everyone who joined and sent in such amazing questions. If you're interested in having Advancing Leadership continue the series to bring together national disability leaders for these types of amazing, fruitful conversations, consider making a donation at 8825chicago.org/donate. Alex will drop that link in the chat, and your support makes these events possible. For newcomers, please also remember to follow Advancing Leadership on all of our social media platforms of Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Medium. And because maybe you would like to rewatch this later, or you want to share this with others who couldn't join us today, a recording of this conversation will be posted shortly. So stay tuned for that in the follow-up as well. And with that, Keah, I want to turn it back over to you for that lovely reading to close us out.
Thank you, and literally thank you everybody for those amazing questions. I promise that I will answer some of the ones that we didn't get to. You'll get some answers from me, I promise, and I'll do as much as I can. What I'm going to read for you tonight is the excerpt from one of the essays in the book, which is Can We Sit for a Sec? It's about my love affair with chairs. And people seem to respond to this one the most. So I thought I'd read you just a couple paragraphs and see, you know, hopefully you like it, and hopefully it'll make you want to buy the book if you haven't yet already. So here we go. My longest relationship has been with chairs. We are very happy together, committed and strong, in sickness and health, till death do us part, etc. There are arguments and disagreements as any other relationship, sure, but we apologize before we go to bed so we don't go to bed angry. The notion of love at first sight is a little cheesy, but it's true. Chairs and I have traveled around the world together. We have cuddled on the beach in Puerto Rico, shared stolen glances in the Virgin Islands. He danced the night away in Grand Turk and gave some major PDA in the Bahamas. My chairs are loyal, with vastly different personalities, but an equal amount of appreciation for the bud of mine that sits in them. A few of them like to play it cool. They don't want me to think that they care as much as they do. And I let them believe that they are winning. Because sometimes you have to let your partner think that they have the upper hand to work on the thing you want later. The chairs in my life love me, and I honestly can't blame them. My favorite place to canoodle with my boo is at the mall. I love shopping. It brings me the kind of joy that I imagine having a child brings to a mother. Shopping is euphoric for me. It is my personal treat after long days. And when shopping, I feel like I can do anything. I feel like anything is possible, like the world is at my fingertips. Several times I have brought in new items that I've forgotten to wear, and then months later I find them with the tag still on. In my new clothes, I feel like I am debuting the best version of myself to the world. I like to wear them when I know enough people will see. Because if enough people don't see me in the outfits, did I even wear a cute one at all? In these moments, I enjoy the clothes and the audience that I get just from existing. In my new clothes, I don't care who stares. Strangers are often looking for a show from me anyway. So why not give them one? If I'm to stand out, at least I will look cute when I do it. New clothes are great for all these reasons, as well as for the option of pairing them with beloved older pieces. And of course, the smell and feel of new clothes is a beautiful thing. When I am at the mall, I often ask myself, what can I buy that I certainly don't need? Ice cream, a cookie, a pretzel, all three. How many items can I buy without trying them on? I believe my record is 4 full outfits and a pair of shoes. You can never have enough of the thing that brings you the most comfort. Thank you.
Thank you, Keah. If you haven't yet bought the pretty one, please do so. Alex just dropped in the chat how you can do that via large retailer of Amazon or local bookstores in your area. So please do that. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. I hope you guys love and enjoy the book, and thank you so much for those wonderful questions. Oh, they were amazing. I can't wait to answer more of them later. Thank you so much. I hope you all stay safe and have a wonderful afternoon, morning, night, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for tuning in to talk to me today.
We wish the same for you. Thank you.